welcome back to Generation Orange. It's a Saturday afternoon. I know we're about a day and a half late. Apologize for that. We got to head back about 48 hours ago, 36 hours ago. Broncos sneak by with a win, 7 to 10 Broncos. And really the only good thing that I can say is that the Broncos are 8 and 2.
Just win, baby. You know,
Just
that's the old Raiders company line, and I think that was that's kind of what we have to come back to. We like you say, we got it. We got the another one in the W, not in the L. I think it's important to remember that it was a divisional win, a very important W to get. Um, trade. I mean, even if we would have lost to the Eagles, let's say, that would have been better than losing this one. Even though we
yeah.
enjoyed that loss and we enjoyed that win, and we want to watch our team play and believe that they can, make some noise in the playoffs and make a Super Bowl run, and we didn't see that, right? So I don't remember the last time Broncos country was this deflated after a win. I don't, it's been a long time, if ever.
Yeah, that's true. And I think our preview podcast a few days ago, we kind of touched on this. I understand that the Raiders are a two-win game or team. But the end of the day is they're still the Raiders. This is still the AFC West. And it's still Pete Carroll. And I think Sean Payton absolutely got outcoached
No question.
on Thursdays. There's no doubt about that. And like I said, we mentioned it, but there wasn't a part of me that necessarily believed that we were just gonna decimate the Raiders. Although I think a lot of people who maybe aren't as aware or just familiar with this kind of AFC West rivalry would believe that, and maybe we should have. That's just I just am never gonna assume that that's going to happen in any divisional matchup, especially in this one. Um, but yeah, I mean, it feels like we have so much to talk about, but then is this really just the same stuff that we've kind of been seeing week in and week out?
Yeah, no, good point. I would say that we are seeing a trend, unfortunately. I wanted to. I think you made a point about Carroll, and not to mention what is his name, Graham, their defensive coordinator for the Raiders, Patrick Graham, and I don't know how because Patrick Graham's been doing a pretty good job there for a few years now. Now they have Carroll there, who's a long time defensive guru. So I don't know how they work together, or what that works like. I'm not a Raiders fan. All I know is you're right. They came ready to play, and there were times that you know that they were just countering what Sean was doing to a T. And I do want to discuss. I mean, we talked about we wanted to see the Broncos run the ball, right? And I'm not saying that they didn't run the ball, but I do think there was probably three or four more plays that were pass plays that should have been running, just straight running plays. And I want to I think one play that really epitomizes this, and I know you're going to remember it. It's like 3rd and 1.5 from, like, I don't know, we're kind of driving, not really driving, but we're like at the 39 of the Raiders. We're in long field goal range, maybe the 38, and it's 3rd and 1.5. Okay, I'm sorry, this is kind of simple. Just pound it. If you want to go for it on fourth, just pound it twice. You're not, And what do? They do a trick play. Sutton's going to try to throw it. Nobody's there, and Sutton doesn't. No, Sutton's trying to run. Sutton gets tackled for like a 4-yard loss. Okay, I'm sorry. I love Sean, and he's our guy. I back him, but Alfred E. Newman could have called a better play in this situation. Okay, you and I, that's just. Here's the thing. If we let's just get hypothetical here for a second, okay? If Sean was the head coach and we had an offensive coordinator that was calling the plays, okay? Let's just say it was that there was a different structure, and that we have an OC calling the plays every week, and we see the exact same body of work that we've seen this season. Okay. Now, let's just say yesterday that OC got fired. Would anybody be like, oh, wow? No, nobody would bat an eye. They would say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Whatever. He's not working with the young quarterback well enough. Or, I think this is that we have a few days before this, ever important Chiefs matchup where I think it's kind of a little bit of a crossroads for the Broncos in terms of accountability. And we're going to get to Bo as well, okay? Bo probably needs some hard coaching right about now, and he's got things to work on. But I also think the coaching is something where they need to be having some tough talks. I mean, Sean is a guy who has a lot of power, right? I think he maybe had more power in New Orleans. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But what I do see with the Broncos is a very serious ownership. And I'm not saying, we know they've got the money with it. We know, but it's not just, I'm not saying they're going to get involved in football matters that they shouldn't get involved with, like meddle, like you don't want to see owners overreaching and meddling in certain details, what have you. But I do want to point out that my impression of them is that this, they're seeing certain things that are unacceptable. So if the coaching staff doesn't figure it out, then, they do. Yeah, no, they need to be accountable as well. Sean does need to be accountable at some point.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the really the only time that this entire season that you've really seen every cylinder just click for the Broncos was against the Cowboys. That's the only time where I feel like this offense, we've actually seen just a glimpse of what they're capable of doing and how they're capable of mixing things up. I've heard this on Twitter, so let's just put on our tinfoil hats for just a second. Could it be possible that Sean is very purposefully not opening up the playbook? Could it be I don't want to say they're doing it on purpose. I'm not saying this is like a scapegoat of like, oh, well, they're actually a lot better. But you got to be scratching your head because it's like you've actually seen this season what this team is capable of offensively. And it's a little bit mind-boggling. You can't convince me that the Raiders were just playing some lights out, like tight coverage man defense, and Bo just has like no options to throw. I don't believe that. So what is it? Is it Sean? But is it maybe a little bit more strategic than people might be giving him credit for? What do you think?
Two things. I think, okay, and we're going to get to Bo in some more details, but let's just say he left some plays on the field this week. Absolutely. This was probably his worst game he's had since his first 3 or 4 games of his rookie season. Okay. He struggled. There were times where he didn't seem confident, just based on the body language I saw. And I've never seen him like that before. So that's a different conversation. Now, getting back to the coaching and the play calling, I think you're right. I think Sean does, mix it up to set up, especially like games against the Chiefs. And I do expect us to have an excellent game plan next week. Okay. Let's just put that out there. However, I think, it kind of seems like Sean just outthinks himself. Like when you get to that, like going back to that, and this isn't the only one. I just think this is the best example. You're doing a wide receiver pass, in a situation. Let's not forget they've got Max Crosby on the other side. Max Crosby spends half the game behind the line of scrimmage. There's just so many things that could go wrong on that, and it did go wrong. Okay, so you and I could have looked at the playbook and said, okay, we're just going to pound a H-back dive in the middle, whatever. Just 2 runs where you really don't lose yardage, right? You just a quick run, and it's probably going to work. If it doesn't, you still have a makeable field goal. That 59-yarder that they missed might have been made if they don't. Anyways, enough about that. You bring up a point about Sean. I do think he's looking for the long game. And hey, again, they did get the win. And sometimes there's a part of me that thinks he's just such a sicko that he doesn't mind putting the Broncos through this stuff. I don't agree. I think he's an excellent play designer. Okay, I do think he does he understands concepts that get guys open. He's not, once in a while you're going to hear, so, oh well, the game's no, he's fine. He's cutting edge. He can do it. Anyways, as far as the you know, Sean's always, yeah, I do think he's always looking in the future and showing certain things this week, that to set up things in future weeks. It just gets tiring to see him constantly not look, I don't want to get too harsh. I just I do think there's a lot of room for improvement there. Okay. And I think they have a long week. Now, the players got the weekend off, but those coaches are in there probably as we speak. I would hope they've been in the facility, you know, a lot. And so they have time to, because even if you go back, you mentioned the Cowboys game, we were saying a lot of the same things before this Cowboys game. Hey, what's going to give? How are they going to get things figured out on offense? Where are the disconnects, right? And then they roll the Cowboys for 44 points. And so it kind of, but now we see the same thing kind of happening again. And also, there could be some adjustments just in the dynamics of the communications that they need to do. I don't know. I think we're getting kind of deep into this, but there was a couple of things I noticed in the pressers over this season, even going back to early in the season with Bo, because Bo he's a smart guy and he's deliberate. He doesn't say anything he doesn't want to say in the pressers, but he's mentioned a couple of times how he likes the tempo, right? Which Sean really doesn't, I don't think. And he has mentioned at least one time how the value of a good running game.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's not like he's cried about it or really, but it has come up and he has mentioned it. So I just think that maybe they're not as on the same page as we would like them to be. I also want to say, if you remember and you still hear this, but you remember when we drafted Bo, how everybody said, "Oh, that's the perfect fit. That's the perfect pick for Sean Payton." Like I don't know that. I mean, Bo is a smart guy, so yeah, I get that. But I don't know that they are two peas in a pod. Okay. And I'm not saying that that means they can't work together. Okay. But I just think there might be some growing pains with that relationship going on here. Okay.
Yeah.
Who
I
knows? I'm speculating, but
it. Bo, I mean, even just you look back sometimes now in retrospect, you think about last season and, oh, well, he's still got a little Ferris Bueller in him. You know what I mean? Now that statement
mhm.
for me is just a little bit more, it has a little bit more meaning. I mean, it was funny at the time, don't get me wrong, but he might be kind of referencing something larger with Bo. And I think especially when there's a trend this whole year of, well, we've had the most success in the fourth quarter, we've had the most success in a quick hurry up 2 minute off or 2 minute drill and with Bo, just leading the offense and driving down the field, that is where the Broncos have actually looked like a serviceable football team. And everyone wants to blame Bo for all of these mishaps on offense, but I think I would be much quicker to blame quote unquote the play calling maybe not being how do I explain this? Like there's you got to give and take. Bo's got to give up certain things that he might want to do for Sean's will, and Sean's gonna have to do the same for him. Realistically, things have to match. In order for this offense to work, it's got to be kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. And I don't know. I think Bo has done a really good job of doing what Sean wants. And that's just an assumption, and based on what I see on the field, I don't know if that's been reciprocated as much on the coaching side when it comes to like just structuring this offense around your talents, especially at quarterback. But I also don't, you're right, we're getting a little bit deep into it because there are other things that I'm concerned about. For instance, more penalties than first downs. That's not going to fly with the Chiefs. You just can't have that. There are just football 101 things that I mean, I just don't understand them sometimes. The penalties are just so big and they've been bad all season. And it seems like every week or so, you'll get a a game where maybe it's kind of clean. And I understand it's a Raiders game, so like famously, there's just going to be some yellow flags that are flying. But I mean, I don't know. It's just seems like at pivotal times you're just getting flags that you can't have and setting yourself up. I mean, how many times on Thursday where was it 1st and 20? You know,
Yeah,
you just
and they weren't those yeah, and they weren't those typical Raider Bronco flags. They were just mental errors, like we
yeah.
see every week, pretty much.
And once again, we got to talk about this. We're kind of, I don't want to get us in a space where we're being Debbie Downers because, man, the defense, once again, absolutely remarkable. 6 sacks. Dad, we talked about this a little bit. They're on track to chase the sack record. And you had mentioned, I kind of hope that they might have um, some extra, just some, like as if they hadn't played a 17 regular season games instead just to counteract
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to beat if that makes
Right,
sense.
right.
And 6 sacks on the night. I mean, Gino was just never safe ever.
It was not comfortable.
No.
And we didn't hear from their golden boy Brock Bowers very much either. Yeah,
Yep.
no, no. Look, the defense, and it sucks that I would love to spend, 20 minutes just talking about them. They've been remarkable. Isn't it interesting? I mean, it feels like the Marvin Mims injury has hurt us way more than the Pat Surtain injury.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Hufunga has just been remarkable. I think his coverage, especially back there, has kind of helped account for the missing PS2 injury. He's really stepped up, not only in the secondary, but especially on the line of scrimmage. I mean, just keeping. I don't even think the Raiders had over 200 yards of offense. The Broncos might have. Not entirely sure. I also didn't really get the chance, just for anyone who's wondering, I didn't get the chance to really watch the game. I was kind of traveling while this game was going on, so I listened very closely. But it's just a little bit different, when you're watching every down on the TV. You're listening to the commentators, of course. So I think there were maybe a few, like I know you had mentioned Bo not necessarily looking great in the pocket or feeling a little bit uncomfortable. That's not something that I was, I guess, just able to pinpoint like I usually have been able to. But I will say that there was not a single time that I looked on that screen and Geno Smith had, first of all, any time in the pocket, or second of all, looked comfortable or safe or anything. I mean, half of the second half he was limping around.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I heard somebody, I don't remember who it was, saying he thought Hufanga was the best safety in the league right now. Now I don't watch enough of the other teams to weigh in on that, but no, he's playing out of his mind. And the linebackers is there's real. I mean, they've been tremendous. How about our boy Dondra Tillman with another
Another,
that guy?
he wants.
Put him on offense. Yeah, he's got some moves, man. He's fun to watch, and so yeah, you know this. I don't want to compare him to the 2015, but it does bring back memories. That it was like that. This is the closest thing you'll see in this day and age to a defense carrying you to the playoffs. The offense has to get better, and if it does, this team is scary. This team is really scary because I think, and again, I don't watch as much football as a lot of you guys do. I watch all the Bronco games, a lot of the Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, and the primetime games. But I know some of you guys out there, you're watching Red Zone. You got different TVs, and so I'm not that guy. But I'll say this: that Denver defensive unit, I'd take the Pepsi Challenge with any other unit in the league right now, offense or defense. Okay, this is what we're hanging our hat on, guys. Okay, and yeah, the special teams was atrocious once again. And is how ugly was the game? Is a game if the big play of a game is a block with a face mask?
I know. No,
This one, yeah, a very ugly game. We could go on and on. And me, I don't mind a 10-7 game. I love a defensive game. I'll take a goal line stand or a forced fumble. I love this stuff. But when it's just slop back and forth, and who can be the I don't know. Credit our boys for playing good defense consistently and getting the win. And then you move forward, and I know you mentioned this when we talked briefly after the game. This could be the best thing that happens to them. You know,
That's
just
that's very true, especially going into KC. I mean, you guys, Broncos fans, know this, but this is about as close as you can get to playing in a playoff game before the actual playoffs. So it's going to be, this is by far the most important football that we've played in a very long time. So my thought process behind that, what he just said, and you did, that is what I said, is kind of like if we were to go into this game against the Raiders and really just stomp on them. Again, the way that maybe a lot of people assume that we should have, maybe the way that we ought to have. I can't, who's to say? If we were to have stomped on this team, a 2-win team, 2-6, I don't know if that would have been the best setup for the Broncos to go in and beat Kansas City. I think that the realistically, the in my mind, when it comes to whether or not we beat the Raiders or not, maybe the best outcome would actually have been to lose to the Raiders in order to beat KC. Again, I don't know for sure. I'm just thinking kind of in trends, but I think this was the best case scenario in that you come out with the win, and wins are always number one, especially in the AFC. And you play a game that humbles you. You play a game that would have been very different if the Raiders didn't miss that field goal. You play a game that would have been very different. You know what I mean? Like all of these things, we talk about so many one possession games, and I don't think that there was ever necessarily a time in that game where I felt like the Broncos weren't going to come out with the win, except for honestly when Geno Smith was hurt. And I'm thinking, oh man, you don't want any backup quarterback magic to happen because it would really take a lot for this game to be the total opposite way. My point is, coming out with the win, sneaking by with the 3-point win, and yet still having a lot of really ugly film to look at is, I think, the best case scenario for the Broncos when it comes to beating the Chiefs this week.
Yeah, I mean, it could be because it's almost you almost get the feeling like they got embarrassed in a win, you know,
They should.
and just seeing the interviews with the offensive guys after the game, that seems like how they felt. You know, they were not happy.
Yeah,
Um,
shouldn't be. I think
you know,
I'm not ever going to compare anything to the 2015 defense because nothing will ever compare realistically. However, this is shaping up to be a historic defense. All things considered, just the way that they're playing, this is a team, this is a year defensively where you're going to mark Denver as, wow, yeah, it had been a while since we'd seen something like that. Because also, it would be impossible to have a game or have a team like the 2015 defense just because of the way that the league and the nature of the game has changed. But this is shaping up to be a historic defensive unit, and I would hate to see that. I don't want to say wasted, but I would hate to see that not get the recognition, outside of the season, historically, that it deserves.
yeah,
Our offense was just lousy.
I feel like the Broncos have a tradition of playing good defense, right? Like that throwback uniform with the D on the helmet. That doesn't just mean Denver, right? That is what they do. They almost never have a year of just playing bad defense. They're usually well above average or really good. And I can't speak to the Orange Crush days. I wasn't, unfortunately, I wasn't able to see that. However, in my time watching the Broncos, I think it's only we're entering week 11. I can say with a straight face, this is at least the second best Broncos defense I've ever seen, and that's saying something. You've seen some good defenses. You've never really seen even that year when the Dolphins rolled the 70, they still turned it around and played good defense later in that year.
It's true.
You know. So no, them boys, yeah, they're getting it done. And but hey, it's still week 11. They don't need us to give them their flowers. They know what to do next week. They'll be there. They're going to get after Mahomie. We can depend on that. What we really need is to see Bo play better.
Yep.
Okay. Now, now, and I'm not, and look, I'll just throw this out there. If there's any of you guys out there in Broncos country that are out on Bo now, because maybe there are some, so be it. Okay, I'm not going to tell you how to fan or what to do, or if you want to, you know, start rooting for them to tank and get in a trade another quarterback. That's fine. Everybody got to do what they want to do. I just want to say I'm still a believer. It's going to take a lot for me to waver from that. Okay. And because I'm looking at the long term, right? And we've mentioned on this show that, we love Bo, but we expect there to be some turbulence. We don't expect him to be all pro. We don't expect him to just throw 3 touchdowns every week. And, you know, so, and we're only a week, I'm sorry, we're only a season and a half in, okay? And I've heard some takes like, well, he had all these college games. No, those are not NFL games, okay? You can't even compare the two, okay? So that's irrelevant. He may have been a little bit more pro ready than the other guys, but once you're in there, look, this is a process, okay? Broncos country, we've seen a lot from Bo to like. If you recall, there was a play in the Texans game, which was not a great game for him either. But do you remember that 2-point conversion, which we really needed? He steps back. No, he literally gets to his third, maybe fourth read, fires a laser to Franklin that just literally seemed to go through the defender's hand, or only Franklin could get it. And look, that was one of the best plays any quarterback made last week. Okay, this guy has done a lot. Okay, now I'm not defending his bad play. He's played bad. He's missed a lot of open guys these last couple of weeks. Okay, I'm not sugarcoating that. I'm just saying when we're looking at the overall body of work and we're remembering that he's only 25 games into the NFL, and this is one of the most difficult jobs in the world to play and to learn. No, yeah, I'm still believing. I'm not wavering. Okay. Having said that, we need to beat these Chiefs, and we did not want to see him struggling right before we're playing this Chiefs game, right? So no, it's a crossroads again. It's like we know, and what I am going to fall back on is because we are concerned for good reason. We are concerned going into this game, right? But at the same time, one thing I'm falling back on is how did Bo show up last season at Arrowhead?
Mm-hmm.
Played some of his best football. I know he didn't have huge stats. I don't even remember what the stats were, and I don't care. I just remembered that this kid showed up in Arrowhead. He did exactly what he needed to do for that team to win. He didn't look out of place. He didn't look uncomfortable in the least. He didn't look anything like he looked the other day. My point is, there's a lot of reason to believe he will play well. Okay. And, again, there's a lot going on with the Broncos right now. We just have to be confident that Sean and Bo get it done. Beating the Chiefs, the essence of beating the Chiefs since they've been good with Mahomes is getting after Mahomes. We saw it in the Super Bowls that they lost with the Eagles and the Bucks just harassing him all game. We've seen it when the Broncos have had success, right? They get after him. They chase him. They don't give him looks. That's still the main thing that the Broncos will have to do, okay? That hasn't changed. We just need an offense with a pulse. We need to play a lot better offensively than they've been playing the last. And it's not just Sean and Bo. The receivers need to be more reliable. Okay, they're dropping too many balls. I just read the Broncos have the second most drop passes in the league. They need to get better. Okay, the offensive line's been lights out. No problems there. The running backs are great. We hope Dobbins is healthy, but Harvey's coming along, maybe not setting the world on fire, but he's progressing. We can rely on Dobbins. It's really just the passing game, okay? Everything involved in the passing game needs to improve.
100%, and it needs to improve before this Sunday. Winning at home, that's just going to be huge. I don't think that there's another way out, in my opinion. There's no, I, if we lose at home to the Chiefs, it's going to be very hard for me to believe that we're going to be able to march into Arrowhead and win this year. And I know that's a little bit down the line, but I don't care. I think you would agree with that. Now, if we win at home, that's huge. And, heaven forbid, this is a team we might have to play 3 different times this year. That's why this specific game is so important. I think we've done a pretty good job of covering what happened, on Thursday. It was ugly, but hey, just win, because at the end of the day, you never really know how important this AFC record is going to be. We're going to see that shape out very interestingly, I presume, over the next several weeks. So we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about. In the meantime, Dad, is there anything we're missing before we wrap up here?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. I mean, it was a, it was a humbling win, like you said, and but fortunately, we did win, and we move on, and we I think we just need to remember that we had a lot of expectations going into this season, but we knew it would be a work in progress. We still have a lot of football to play. Okay, there's a team can change a lot in 10, can make a lot of improvements in 10 days, and there's a lot of areas defensively we don't need to make improvements. We'll get Pat back at some point, and that's going to be a huge help. And so yeah, we just move on. It's week to week.
Absolutely.
You're 100% right, though, as far as this, and we'll talk more about this Chief game, but yeah, you're right. I feel like there's like 3 paths. Okay, there's like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Plan A, yeah, beat the Chiefs this week, and then just take that driver's seat and win the division. Take care of the Chargers if needed. Plan B is if we lose this game next week, okay, then Plan B means we have to go to Arrowhead and win to win the division, almost certainly. Which, hey, that's not impossible. I'd say that's Plan B. Plan C, get in there as a wild card, and which, it can be done, but we're looking for Plan A, right? Plan A all the way here. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was an ugly Raiders game. Maybe the ugliest Broncos Raider game I've seen, and that's saying something. But yeah, just win, baby. We gotta appreciate that, because that's why they play the games.
Yep. We will see you guys next week before the Chiefs game. We'll be recording a preview. We'll be talking a lot of ball, talking about what the expectations are. Hopefully we'll get an injury report. We'll hear a little bit about JK, for instance. That's one that I'm a little bit concerned about, because he's going to be huge in this KC game. There's no doubt about it. Well, Broncos country, that is all we've got for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Generation Orange. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode of Gen Orange. Shoot us some comments. There's a lot of stuff you might be angry about after Thursday night. We'd love to hear about it. I mean, you called it, Dad. You said it was very ugly. That it was. I mean, it's not I'm not partial to watching that kind of football. To me, I just get frustrated. But we'd love to hear from you guys. It's awesome reading your comments. It is so much fun. My dad and I talk about it all throughout the week when we get them. So please don't stop chiming in. My name is Adriana. This is my dad, Les, and this has been Generation Orange. We will see you guys in a few days.
Go Broncos.